Hey guys, Coach Charlie Lanford here, wide receiver coach at Marysville Getchell High School in Washington State. Here I'm going to share with you a little bit about my wide receiver philosophy and my manual for them, and what I think really goes into being a good wide receiver. All right, so a little bit about me is I've coached a couple seasons at St. Stanislaus High School. Had some success with that. First season, we almost hit 1,500 yards receiving. We had 17 receiving touchdowns. Second season, we had almost 1,900 receiving yards, 18 receiving touchdowns. And over those both seasons, I had at least 3 receivers with at least 200 yards and 2 touchdowns each. Here are a little bit of my record keeping for my receivers. I really like to see how they progress from year to year. And even though stats and receptions, touchdowns aren't really like a linear statistic to really consider in progression, it really does help see if this person has really progressed and if they took the next step. All right, so my name, or my I guess you call it like nickname for my wide receiver group, is called a SAW Squad. All right, so we're focused on speed, ability, utility, consistency, and explosiveness. All right, these 5 things are what we kind of focus on as receivers to really make us good and separate us from the other, I guess, receivers or other people on the team, and really have a role, if that makes sense. And I always tell my players, what we're going to do, and our motto is we're going to cook people and do it with flavor. All right, so what makes a good wide receiver? So I think what makes a good receiver is a lot of things people don't consider, such as like mindset. All right, so your mindset is really going to play a big part in it, such as like how you feel about yourself, how you feel about the play. All right, you got to be confident. You got to have some swag about yourself. You got to be, able to, psych yourself into stuff, and like when things don't go wrong, kind of be able to bounce back. All right, and then technique. All right, so in my perspective, technique is something that separates, the good from the average. All right, or really good from the good. So being really good at the little things, and getting everything down to like a science, almost being able to replicate it. That's something that is really valuable and really helps out with your skill as a receiver and as an athlete. All right. Another thing is playing physical. So a lot of times people will kind of have this perception of receivers that receivers are kind of soft. They don't like to get involved in the run game. And, they're just kind of out there, don't like to block, stuff like that. Now, with me, I want my guys and like encourage them to be the opposite. To actually be like aggressive. Obviously within the context, but like play physical and be willing to dish out punishment and get involved in the plays, and do a good job by being active physical, not be the one just taking hits, like dish out some hits, and makes it more fun and makes you more effective in a way, I'd say. Another thing is effort. All right, so a lot of times in my perspective, if something goes wrong, or something's not necessarily going the way we want it to be, major effort can really correct that. So what I mean is, like, say like you fumble the ball, but if you have effort to go pursue that ball, the play could have ended up worse, but because of your effort, correct some stuff. So that's something I really love to see in my athletes, is ultimate effort in all their plays. So now the 5 what's a wide receiver player, right? So these are questions to consider as a receiver, as you're kind of preparing to be, present in the game, right? So first is, what do you do without the ball? Then what do you do before the snap? What are you doing to get open? What are you doing when the ball is coming? And what are you doing once you got the ball? All right. So this first one, what do you do when you don't have the ball? All right. So for me, blocking is a must. All right. This is something I work every day. In most practices, like some form of blocking. I don't think it's worked enough, and it's part of the reasons why receivers shy away from it, I think. Now, kind of like I mentioned, effort. All right. So in the blocking, and what you do when you don't have the ball is give effort. So this is 100% on every play. Plays are 6 to 8 seconds at the max. I need you to give me that full effort for 6 seconds, every 30 seconds. All right. That's not very difficult to do. If that's something for, something that's difficult for you, we'll find someone who's willing to do that. So another thing to do when you don't have the ball is, like, work on your releases or stems. Like, I'm sure, it's easy to fall asleep out there, especially if it's like a, run heavy offense, but like work on stuff like your releases, your stems. If it's going away, if the ball's going to someone else, like just see how that DB reacts. Take note of what the defense is doing. Just a bunch of different stuff. Like the last thing you want to do is like fall asleep, just kind of give half effort and not really sell what you're doing. And the reason for that as well is like I've seen receivers who only give effort when the ball is coming their way, or when it's a pass play, and like that's a telltale sign of DBs. They're like, oh, gotta watch out. Another thing is to follow the ball, right? So what I mean by that is like, say the play is on the other side, he's going downfield, like instead of just like standing there watching, like go follow him. Be careful about blocking, but being at the right place at the right time can often give you opportunities that you might not have. Say like a fumble happens, if you're there, you have an opportunity to pick it up. Maybe the ball is tipped in the air. If you're around the area, you have an opportunity to maybe catch that and get some yardage. But if you're not there, you're gonna miss out on opportunities, like I'm saying. So, and then another thing is finishing the play out. So what this means is fully running your route, fully executing your assignment, whether it's a run play, pass play, whatever it is, and not slacking at any plays. All right. When you do this, you kind of give yourself, I guess, validity in the offense. All right. Like if you take plays off, like I said earlier, like DBs will kind of write you off and not consider you a threat, and also kind of just like cheat yourself and your teammates. Why are you not finishing the play? Like that's not something we coach and not something we accept here, right? So another thing is, what do you do before the snap? So before the snap, you really got to be focused on your stance, right? Stance is all about how you start and affects a lot of your route and how things are going to go from the beginning. So I want 70% of your weight on your front tail, all right? Your hands should be in a comfortable position, not resting your knees or your body. That kind of defeats your movement in a way. And then if a DB, and then this is something I preach, coaches might have a different perspective, but if a DB is up in your face or ready to press, I want them to have hands up, ready to kind of get them hand fighting going on, make sure the DB can't get hands on you so you can get your releases, get your route in and stuff like that. All right. And then another thing that's important is your alignment. All right. So make sure that your splits, and where you're lined up on the field is right for the play that's called. Right. So if play calls for you to be like outside the numbers or inside the numbers, or like split number one and the tackle, like make sure you're lined up right. A lot of times that can have an effect on timing, an effect on how the defense lines up and what they show as well. So that's really important to know where you're at before the snap, right? And then another thing, this is kind of more advanced, but as you get more comfortable with it, is kind of read the defense, kind of see what they're doing. So you want to consider like, where's the corner off? Is it off? Is it press? Where's the safety? Is the middle field open? Is it closed? Like, where's the safety looking? All this stuff. This is kind of like things you kind of want to process, as kind of pre-snap. These are a lot of things like quarterbacks do, but like, as a receiver, it's good to do as well. So like how you're going to attack the defense, and then how you're going to try about getting open, if that makes sense. So yeah, kind of like I said, like, this is kind of post-snap, but still in that pre-snap kind of area. So like, read the defense post-snap. Did they do something different than what they showed? Are people blitzing? Is that corner who's now in your face, is he now bailing out? All right. And then another thing is to kind of have like a kind of plan for your route. All right. Like how are you going to release against this, inside shade or inside leverage, DB, if you're running a slant, have kind of a working plan in your head as to how you're going to attack it, like how am I going to stem this? And then we're going to do a top route. Some of these things you can kind of do by feel as you're running the route, but it's just something to consider, as you're getting lined up. That's just one of the things to have in the back of your mind. And then, so now this is when the ball is snapped, right? So what are you doing to get open? All right. So releases, there's typically 3 levels or 3 types of releases that you can use. One's a press release, used versus a press defender, someone in the face. Space release, used versus a soft press defender, like 5 to 7 yards off, something like that. And then secondary release. So now this can be used against anybody who's like 5 to 7 yards off, but really just kind of squatting, not really giving any room, right? So some things you can do is, I'll get the releases later in my release video, but that's just, some things you can do to get open is like your release and how you're going to use that, how you're going to manipulate the DB or the coverage man, in front of you or next to you, right? Stemming. So stemming is kind of using the defender's leverage or manipulating defenders to create space. So a lot of times that means like kind of changing or altering your route a little bit to create space or separation in the defense or in the zones, or keeping your guy off from where you want to go. Another thing is hand fighting, right? So like I mentioned earlier, receivers need to be ready to keep DBs' hands off of them. Some DBs really like to kind of latch on, and once they do, it can be really hard to get open or really, separate. So it's important to make sure you're, using your hands and make sure the DB gets his hands off of you, like all throughout the route. At the press, stemming or release, just make sure you got your hands ready to fight. And then, so some things you need to consider is like, what type of coverage am I going against? Like, is it man? If it's man, what you're going to need to do is need to create space between you and your defender. And there's several ways to do that, through releases, through stems, And then another thing is through zone is kind of a whole different mentality. So now instead of like, run away from your man to create space, now you're trying to find space, because defense is leaving space so much just about, where it is and finding that. So now the next question is, what are you doing when the ball is coming? All right. So, at this point, you kind of assess the defense, you got open, and now the ball's coming your way. So now one thing you need to do is concentrate. All right. So what you need to do is concentrate on the ball. You need to locate it and let the ball direct you. So what I mean by that is adjust to the ball or the pass, right? So a lot of times receivers have this misconception that like the quarterback's going to put the ball on every time. Now that's rarely true. Receivers, it's our job to kind of adjust to where the ball's going and go meet it and, make it happen for the quarterbacks, all right? Another thing is contested catching, all right? So this is something I work on a lot with my players. I don't think it's something that receivers are used to enough, is making catches while, under pressure, or someone trying to make you, not catch the ball. So that's something we work on a lot during practice. Something I think is good. Work back to the ball. So I always preach this, the easiest way to get to the ball is go to the ball. So on comebacks, curls, even like slants or digs, like work back to the ball, make sure you're the first person to get that, instead of giving the defenders the opportunity to undercut it. Now of course you gotta like honor the routed concept. If it's like an arrow and it dictates you to go at a different angle than downhill, of course do that, but just keep that in mind. And then another thing is in-phase fighting. So like this is more like go balls, or like anything with the DB's kind of still in your face. So you got to keep hand fighting. Got to make sure you're getting the DB's hands off of you, so that when the balls come, you can adjust to it, catch it, and secure the catch. If that makes sense. So now that we've got through those stages, now it's what are you doing when you have the ball in your hand? All right. So at this stage, one of the main focuses is ball security, right? So I think this is something that receivers don't work on that much, and I think it needs to be highlighted. So what you're going to do is you're going to tuck the ball high and tight immediately. And I was telling, like, even when you completed the catch, you're going to look the ball all the way into the tuck, because like a lot of times that's how you drop the football, is you don't concentrate and bring it all the way in. You just kind of look away, drop it, lack concentration. So you're going to tuck the ball high and tight and keep it there at all times, all right? Like, oftentimes you can switch hands if you want. I think that's a little sketchy. That's when you lose, control. But nevertheless, that's something to kind of keep in your mind. And then yak, all right? So yards after the catch. You should be aiming to, like, score a touchdown every single time you get the ball. So what I mean by that is just, like, have this mentality, I'm going to score this time, all right? Like, let's make something happen. Let's make a move and get going. So, and then, like, at the very least, I want you to get like 4 yards. That's an efficient play. That's not the most efficient pass play, but 4 yards will keep, the drive alive, keep the play alive, and, help the offense keep cooking and keep running, if that makes sense. All right. So I always have the mindset that playing receiver is not science, like it's not exact, like do this, and this is more of an art. Like My goal is to give you tools and opportunities to be successful as a receiver and individual, and then it's your job to kind of use those tools to like match your skill set and like your ability to maximize who you are. And I kind of like coach you along that way to like, hey, this kind of release would work better for you. Try this, and kind of like work on your strengths, all right? And everyone has strengths and weaknesses. It's just about like learning to mitigate those weaknesses and then like highlighting those strengths. So another thing is just be yourself. Like I'm not expecting you to play like somebody else or like be as fast as somebody else. Just do what you can to be the best receiver you can in yourself and your own skill set, stuff like that. And then expectations. All right, so these are expectations that I have for like my receivers. I expect them to ask questions. All right, if you don't understand the why of a drill or the what of a play, anything like that, like ask questions. Like that's the only way to learn. I also expect them to watch film. All right, that's important. I think it's important to know like what to look for as well. But I think watching film is a good habit to do. And then I also expect you to kind of get better with every practice. So like every practice have something they're like, oh, I got better at this, or I'm working at this specific thing. And then I'll consistently ask you about at my receivers about their like thought processes for their actions like on the field, in practice, in the game. And be like, all right, like what were you thinking on this play? Or, like what was your XYZ? Like why did you sit right here? Do you think of zone, whatever, stuff like that. And then I expect you to communicate with coaches. All right, that's on and about everything. I expect receivers to be, like, hey coach, I'm not gonna be there today. Hey coach, like how should I run this route? Hey coach, just anything like that. And then the other thing is this is important, is be a unit. All right, so it's called sauce squad. So anyone within the sauce squad or or group is part of the group, right? So I don't want to see any like factions or divisions within the group. I want us to be like a family, like like a brotherhood that from the senior to the incoming freshman, like everyone knows they belong, everyone knows they got a place here, and we just work together. And the last thing is be unselfish. So what that means is like sure, we got to get our guys the ball, and the coaches are working to do that, but at the same time know that there's a greater purpose. Like we want to win the game. We want to be able to employ everyone and do the best we can. So in that, you just can't be doing stupid things that cause penalties or taking plays off, things like that. So that's kind of my expectations for my wide receivers and how I go about coaching them. If you have any questions about this presentation or want it, or have any pointers, feel free to hit me up at my Twitter or on this video, and we'll go from there. All right, thanks guys.